The first words Darius Hale heard as he stepped into the bank to wire $30 million were laced with venom. 30 million? What the hell kind of trash like you has 30 million to deposit? Walter Pennington's smile vanished in an instant. He snapped his fingers toward security. Shut your mouth. Get this thing out of my bank. Within seconds, cold metal snapped around Darius's wrists. His knees hit the polished marble floor under the gaze of dozens of customers. Behind the counter, one of the tellers had her phone out, live streaming the scene. Y'all seeing this? This man said 30 million. 30? Darius knelt in silence, his eyes moving across every face in the room. In just minutes, the entire branch would be consumed by the firestorm that followed. To take you back to how it all began, one ordinary morning, Darius Hale rose in his four-bedroom brick home nestled in Myers Park, Charlotte. The mature trees outside framed a wide porch with 2 rocking chairs. It wasn't flashy or loud. It was the kind of home a man chooses because the porch whispers of his grandmother's place on the south side of Chicago, a place filled with warmth and quiet strength. He prepared his coffee using a French press and scrambled 3 eggs in a well-seasoned cast-iron skillet. The kitchen filled with the comforting aroma of melting butter and rich black coffee. Standing at the counter in a simple t-shirt and shorts, he scrolled through his tablet, reviewing deal flow, quarterly projections, and potential acquisition targets. This was his routine, a moment of peace before the demands of leading Hale Capital Group. His phone buzzed with a message from Elena Vargas, his dedicated executive assistant who had been by his side for many years. Everything ready for the board meeting? Have you reviewed the deck? He texted back quickly. Handled. Taking the morning to myself. Darius Hale was the founder and CEO of Hale Capital Group, a private equity firm with over $2 billion in assets under management. He had built it from nothing. A single room in Chicago with nothing but a folding table and a phone that often failed to connect. Now the firm had dozens of employees across multiple offices, and its portfolio commanded respect on Wall Street. Yet on mornings like this, he was simply a man in comfortable clothes, making his own breakfast. Today, he needed to visit the bank. The firm was closing on a significant acquisition, a logistics company in Atlanta. $30 million had to be transferred between accounts, a transaction that required in-person verification by the branch manager for such a substantial amount. It was standard procedure for deals of this magnitude. Darius had been a valued client of Heritage First National Bank for years. His personal and corporate accounts together held around $40 million in deposits. He had handled similar transfers before, always with professionalism and ease. His previous private banker, a woman named Sandra, had managed everything with a simple phone call and a firm handshake. Sandra had moved to another branch not long ago. Darius had not yet met the new manager. He hadn't needed to, until today. He dressed casually in jeans, clean white sneakers, and a plain navy jacket. No suit, no tie, no briefcase, no watch. It was a day for running an errand, not for boardrooms or galas. He drove himself in his understated black Audi, the kind of car that moved through traffic without drawing attention. He didn't bring Elena or any company letterhead, just his driver's license and debit card. He had done this countless times before. Walk in, verify identity, authorize the transfer, and walk out. The Heritage First National Bank branch stood in the South Park district of Charlotte. Its brick and glass exterior bore brass lettering above the door. Inside, marble counters gleamed under polished lights. A waiting area offered leather chairs, and a flat-screen television on the wall played CNBC on mute. The air carried the scent of floor polish and aged paper, the subtle perfume of money pretending at humility. The branch manager was Walter Pennington. In his late 50s, with silver hair and gold cufflinks, he had run this branch for nearly a decade like an exclusive private club with an unspoken dress code. High-net-worth white clients received the leather chairs, the private office, the personal calls on birthdays, and bottles of scotch at Christmas. Everyone else received the ATEM and a restrained, polite smile. Walter operated by an unwritten rule that every teller and loan officer understood without it ever being spoken aloud. If someone walked through the door who didn't look like they belonged to money, you redirected them quickly. Don't engage. Don't waste time. Move them along. It was never written in any manual. The staff simply felt it, like birds sensing a shift in the wind. Darius pushed through the glass doors. The cold blast of air conditioning hit him sharply after the warmth outside. He approached the service counter, where 3 people waited ahead of him. He stood patiently, checking his phone now and then, taking in the framed photos on the wall. Community awards, charity golf tournaments, ribbon cuttings. Every single face in those photos was white. Jenna Carver stood at the teller window. In her early 30s, with blonde hair, she saw Darius approach. Her smile never came. Instead, she looked past him to the next person in line, a white woman in a cashmere cardigan, and her expression softened instantly. "Good morning, Mrs. Ashford. How are the grandkids?" When Darius reached the counter, Jenna's eyes returned to him, flat and empty. She cleared her throat. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I need to speak with the branch manager about a wire transfer," Darius said calmly. $30 million. It requires in-person verification." Jenna's eyebrows rose. She took in his jeans and sneakers, and her lips pressed tightly together as if holding back words. She picked up the phone. "Walter, there's a man out here asking about a $30 million wire transfer. Yeah, you should probably come see this yourself." In the waiting area, an older man in a brown cardigan adjusted his reading glasses. Eugene Ramsey, 68 years old, and a retired postal worker who had banked here for decades, shifted his phone on his knee. The camera was already recording. He had been doing this for years now, capturing every visit on video, just in case. This morning felt like one of those times. Walter Pennington took his time emerging from the back office. He strolled out slowly, deliberately, every step declaring his authority. He wore a pressed charcoal suit, gold cufflinks that flashed under the lights, reading glasses on a chain around his neck, and a Mont Blanc pen clipped to his breast pocket. Walter dressed like money because he wanted everyone to know he stood beside it every day, even if none of it belonged to him. He looked at Darius. The assessment took only seconds. Jeans, sneakers, no watch, no briefcase, no suit, no tie. Walter's face settled into an expression Darius had encountered far too many times, the polite mask of disgust, the smile reserved for those already judged as lesser. "So you're the one asking about a wire transfer?" Walter asked. "That's right," Darius replied. $30 million between 2 accounts I hold here." Walter tilted his head, the patronizing smile spreading. $30 million. That's quite a large number. Very large. Can I ask what kind of accounts you hold with us?" "Business and personal. Under my name, Darius Hale." Walter moved behind the counter and typed the name into the terminal. The screen loaded. Something flickered in his eyes, quick and almost imperceptible, before it vanished. He cleared his throat. "I'm going to need to verify a few things. Identification?" Darius handed over his driver's license. Walter took it between 2 fingers, as if touching something distasteful. He held it up to the light, tilting it one way, then the other, studying the photo, then Darius's face, then the photo again. It was the kind of scrutiny one might give a suspicious bill. "Any documentation?" Walter asked. "Business cards? Account statements? Anything linking you to these accounts?" "I didn't bring paperwork," Darius said. It's a casual day. I've done this before. Your system has all the information you need. Walter placed the license on the counter, not handed back, but placed, like evidence being logged. With an amount this size, we have to be very careful. You understand. For everyone's protection. The words sounded reasonable, but the undertone filled the lobby like toxic gas, silent, suffocating, and impossible to ignore. Walter did not invite Darius to his office. He offered no chair. He did not lower his voice. The interrogation happened right there at the counter, in full view of everyone. Every question landed like a spotlight. Where did these funds originate? From my firm, Hale Capital Group. We're a private equity company. Private equity? Walter repeated the words as if they were something childish and made up. And what is the nature of this transfer? An acquisition. Standard procedure for deals of this size. Walter cleared his throat again. And can you explain why someone with accounts of this size would walk in without an appointment, without documentation, without any indication of who they are? His eyes dropped pointedly to Darius's sneakers. Each question was a small cut, polite on the surface, drawing blood beneath. The lobby had grown quiet. Conversations stopped. A woman in the waiting area lowered her magazine. A man near the ATM paused mid-transaction. Jenna stood behind the counter with her arms crossed, watching like someone who had seen this performance before. Then a white couple approached the adjacent teller window. In their mid-60s, wearing golf shirts and sporting tanned skin, they caught Walter's attention. His entire demeanor transformed. His spine straightened, and a warm, genuine smile bloomed across his face. "Howard, Evelyn, great to see you both. How's the lake house? Still dealing with that dock issue?" He leaned on the counter like an old friend at a backyard gathering, all easy laughter and first-name familiarity. Darius watched the contrast, sharp as a blade held to the light. Same counter, same bank, same morning. Different skin, different world. Walter turned back to Darius. The warmth disappeared as if it had never existed. The mask returned, colder and tighter than before. "Sir, I'm going to be honest with you. Something about this doesn't add up." "What doesn't add up?" Darius asked. "You walk into my bank with no appointment, no documentation, no business identification, no professional attire, asking to move $30 million. Walter leaned forward. "That raises flags." "What kind of flags?" Walter lowered his voice, though not enough to keep the words from carrying. "The kind that require me to file a suspicious activity report. The kind that involve law enforcement. The kind that mean I have a legal obligation to detain you if I believe fraudulent activity is in progress." He was threatening to report Darius for money laundering, right there in the middle of the lobby, based on nothing but his appearance and clothing. Darius's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "I've given you my name, my identification, my account number. Your system shows everything. What exactly is suspicious, other than the way I look?" Walter straightened. "I'll decide what's suspicious in my branch." Behind the counter, Jenna pulled out her personal phone. She didn't just start recording. She opened Instagram and tapped the live button. The red dot appeared. Her caption read, "You won't believe what's happening at my bank right now." Viewers began trickling in. She angled the camera to capture Darius from the front and Walter from the side. Walter picked up the desk phone. "Royce, I need you in the lobby. Now. We have a suspected fraud in progress." Darius didn't move. "I'm not leaving. I'm a client of this bank. I have $40 million in accounts here. Call your regional office. Call compliance. But I am not leaving." Walter's face flushed. The veins in his neck stood out. He came around the counter, stepping into Darius's space, changing the entire geometry of the confrontation. He was no longer a manager behind a desk. He was a man invading someone's personal space. "You are now trespassing," Walter announced loudly, performing for the room. "You have been asked to leave. Royce." Royce arrived quickly, a large man with a crew cut, his security uniform straining across his broad shoulders. He looked at Walter, then at Darius, then at the frozen faces in the lobby. Walter pointed at Darius. "This man is attempting wire fraud. Detain him." "I'm not committing any crime," Darius said. "Check the system. Royce, cuff him." Royce pulled out the handcuffs. He grabbed Darius's right wrist first, hard and fast, then the left. The metal clicked shut with a sound that echoed off the marble like a gunshot in a cathedral. Cold, sharp, final. Walter placed a hand on Darius's shoulder and pushed downward. "On the floor. Now." Darius's knees struck the cold marble. The chill seeped through his jeans and into his bones. His hands were locked behind his back, the metal biting into his skin with two thin lines of fire. The lobby froze. Dozens of people. Not a single voice rose in protest. A child in the waiting area tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mama, did that man steal something?" Walter heard it. He turned to the child and answered, loud enough for the entire room to hear, "That's right, buddy. That's why we have security. To keep everyone safe from people like him." Darius's jaw clenched. His wrists burned. He could feel every eye in the room pressing down on the back of his neck. He could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights, the soft murmur of CNBC from the television, and beneath it all, the faint, steady chime of Jenna's phone receiving comments on the live stream. Jenna zoomed in on Darius's face, his eyes, his jaw, the sweat forming at his temple. She whispered into her phone, "Caught a live one today, guys. Walked in here talking about $30 million. Sure, buddy." The viewer count climbed rapidly. 2,000, then 3,000, then 5,000. Comments flooded in faster than she could read them. In the waiting area, Eugene Ramsey sat perfectly still, his phone resting on his knee, camera pointed steadily at the counter. His footage captured what Jenna's livestream missed, the angle that showed Walter's face as he watched Darius kneel. The expression wasn't anger. It wasn't caution. It was satisfaction. The quiet, settled pleasure of a man who believed the world was finally arranged exactly as it should be. Darius knelt on the cold marble, handcuffed and humiliated in the middle of a bank where he held $40 million, all because he had worn sneakers on an ordinary day. He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He didn't explain himself again. He simply looked at Walter with one long, steady gaze and spoke 6 words. "Is this how you treat every customer? Or just the ones who look like me?" Walter smirked. "I treat criminals like criminals." Darius held his gaze. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, the kind of quiet that comes not from weakness, but from knowing something the other person does not yet understand. "What's your full name? I want to make sure I spell it right." Walter laughed, but the sound landed wrong, hanging in the air a beat too long. For half a second, something crossed his face that hadn't been there before. It looked a lot like doubt. After several long minutes, a police cruiser pulled into the parking lot. Walter had called 911 minutes after the handcuffs were applied. His voice on the recording, which would later be played in court, was calm, practiced, and entirely false. "I have a black male at Heritage First National, South Park branch, attempting wire fraud. Large amount. He's been detained by security. He became belligerent when confronted. Please send officers immediately. Belligerent." Darius had not raised his voice once. The live stream would prove that. Eugene's footage would prove that. But Walter didn't know those recordings existed. He believed the video showed exactly what he wanted it to show. A dangerous man being handled by a competent manager. He was wrong about everything. 2 officers entered the bank. The first was young, fresh uniform, stiff posture, hand near his belt. The second was Officer Reed, in his mid-30s, with calm eyes. He had worked the South Park area for years. He walked into bank lobbies the way a mechanic walks into a garage, scanning for what didn't belong. What didn't belong was a man in handcuffs on a marble floor, while dozens of people sat in leather chairs and watched in silence. Officer Reed approached Darius first. He knelt down, actually knelt, one knee on the marble, and spoke directly to him. Not over him, not past him, to him. "Sir, can you tell me what happened here?" Darius's voice was steady. The time on the cold floor hadn't broken it. "My name is Darius Hale. I'm a client of this bank. I've held accounts here for years. I came in this morning to authorize a wire transfer, $30 million between two of my accounts." The branch manager refused to verify my information. He called me a fraud. He had security handcuff me. I have not raised my voice. I have not threatened anyone. I have not moved from this spot. Officer Reed looked at the handcuffs, at the red, swelling skin around Darius's wrists. He looked at the lobby, the silent customers, the staring tellers, the child still gripping his mother's hand. Then he looked at Walter. Is this accurate? Walter straightened and crossed his arms, the posture of a man who believed the badge in the room was on his side. He walked in off the street claiming to have $30 million. No documentation, no appointment, no business identification. He matches the profile of... "Did you verify his accounts in your system?" Officer Reed interrupted. Walter paused a beat too long. "The circumstances required." "Tababa. Did you check the system? Yes or no?" Silence fell. The fluorescent lights buzzed. CNBC. Murmured from the screen. Jenna's livestream chimed with another comment notification. Somewhere, a pen dropped, and no one picked it up. "I was in the process of..." "Yes or no, Mr. Pennington?" "No." Officer Reed let that single word hang in the air for several full seconds. Then he turned to Jenna. "Turn off the live stream. Now." Jenna fumbled with her phone, her fingers trembling, not from guilt, but from the sudden realization that the power in the room had shifted. She closed Instagram, but it was already too late. Minutes of unedited, uncut live footage had been broadcast to thousands of viewers. Hundreds had screen recorded it. The video was already spreading across the internet like something with no cure. Officer Reed turned back to Darius. He looked at his face, and something clicked. A flicker of recognition. Months earlier, at a charity gala, Hale Capital Group had sponsored the event. Darius had given the keynote speech about economic equity in underserved communities. Officer Reed had been in the audience with his wife. He remembered the speech. He remembered the man. "Remove the handcuffs," Officer Reed said. The room shifted. "Officer?" Walter began. But the authority in the room had already changed hands. "Remove them, now." Royce looked at Walter. Walter opened his mouth, then closed it. Royce reached for his key and unlocked the cuffs. The metal fell away. Darius brought his wrists forward. He didn't rub them yet. He held them up just enough for the room to see. The two rings of angry red skin, deep grooves where the steel had pressed into flesh. The marks would bruise by evening. They would be photographed by his attorney before nightfall. Officer Reed helped Darius to his feet. Then he turned to Walter, his voice low, controlled, and heavy with understanding. "You just handcuffed one of the wealthiest men in Charlotte on the floor of his own bank." Walter's face cycled through confusion, denial, recognition, and fear in seconds. That's not possible. He doesn't pull up his accounts right now." Walter's hands trembled as he walked to the terminal. He typed Darius's name. The screen loaded. The numbers appeared. Combined deposits, over $40 million. Account status, active. Years of history, 0 flags. 0 suspicious activity reports, 0 holds, 0 issues of any kind. The color drained from Walter's face like water from a cracked glass. 40 million, Officer Reed said, and you had him on the floor. Walter's mouth moved, but nothing useful came out. How was I? He didn't look like what? Silence. Darius stood in the middle of the lobby. His jacket was twisted. A button was missing, popped off when Royce forced him down. His wrists throbbed with each heartbeat. He straightened his jacket slowly. Then he turned to face the lobby. Every face was watching. Tellers, customers, the couple in golf shirts, the mother holding her child, the man by the ATM who had frozen mid-transaction. Burnt. He spoke, not shouting, not angry, calm, clear, and aimed at every ear in the room. This man just handcuffed a customer with $40 million in this bank because I wore sneakers today. He paused. If I were white, wearing this exact outfit, standing at this exact counter, would I be on that floor right now? Nobody answered. Nobody needed to. The lobby remained still. The only sounds were the hum of the fluorescent lights and the soft scroll of stock tickers on the television screen. The world outside kept moving. Inside Heritage First National, everything had stopped. While the bank lobby sat in silence, something far louder was unfolding online. Jenna's livestream had been stopped, but not before thousands had watched it in real time. Hundreds had screen recorded it. Within hours, the footage was everywhere. On TikTok, on X, on Reddit, on Facebook, in every group chat and feed. By evening, 2 million views. By the next morning, 8 million. By nightfall, 20 million. And the comments weren't laughing. That man was calm and respectful, and they put him in handcuffs. This is racial profiling on camera live. Who is the branch manager? Name and location. Now. The teller really narrated this like it was a comedy show. She's done. Then came the identifications. Internet users found the branch, found Walter's LinkedIn profile, found Jenna's social media. Every profile, every photo, every post she had ever made. And then someone found Darius. Wait, that's Darius Hale, CEO of Hale Capital Group. That man manages $2 billion and they had him on the floor. The story didn't just go viral, it detonated. That same day, Darius called Elena. Get Douglas Everett. Get corporate counsel. File a preservation order before close of business. All security footage, internal communications, employee records, everything. The next day, Eugene Ramsey found Darius's firm through a news article and called the office. He offered his footage, 14 minutes from a different angle, unedited. It captured what Jenna's livestream had missed. Walter's face when Darius was forced to kneel, the satisfaction, the pleasure, the dismissive tone before the camera even started rolling, and the deep red marks on Darius's wrists when the cuffs came off. Elena compiled the file. Years of account history, 40 million in deposits, 0 flags, both videos. Preliminary research showing a pattern. Multiple online reviews from Black and Hispanic customers describing being profiled, refused service, or redirected at this specific branch. Darius also discovered that Heritage First National's parent company, Atlantic Union Financial Group, had been under a federal consent decree for years. The decree required anti-discrimination protocols at every branch. Walter's branch had filed 0 compliance reports in nearly a decade. Not one. That evening, Simon Pryor, the junior loan officer who had watched from the back office doorway and said nothing, sat at his kitchen table and wrote a 4-page statement. It detailed the branch culture, the unwritten rules, the profiling protocols, names, dates, incidents. He emailed it to corporate compliance and saved a copy for himself. The next morning, he told Walter he was taking a personal day. He didn't come back. That afternoon, Darius's legal team filed a $50 million lawsuit against Heritage First National Bank, Walter Pennington personally, and Atlantic Union Financial Group. A complaint was filed with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. A criminal investigation was opened by Detective Lena Cruz of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. The $50 million figure wasn't about the money. Darius didn't need it. He needed the number to be loud enough that no bank in America could pretend they hadn't heard it. The next morning, the Heritage First National parking lot was mostly empty when two black SUVs pulled in and parked directly in front of the entrance, at the curb, as if they owned the pavement. Camille Whitaker stepped out of the first vehicle, the regional director of Atlantic Union Financial Group, the parent company that owned Heritage First and 21 other branches across the Southeast. She wore a dark suit, a thin silver watch, and no smile. She moved like a woman who had cleared her entire schedule for this. Behind her came two corporate attorneys in charcoal suits carrying matching briefcases and an independent HR investigator with a banker's box of document requests. 4 people walking in formation, heels striking asphalt. Inside, Walter sat at his desk, coffee steaming. Calendar open. He was reviewing weekend occupancy numbers for the safe deposit vault. He had spent the previous day and night convincing himself the situation was handled. The man had been removed. Royce had done his job. Jenna's video would blow over. These things always did. People got angry on the internet for a day and then moved on. He hadn't checked social media. He didn't know the video had reached 20 million views. He didn't know Darius Hale was trending nationally. He didn't know his own name was being searched tens of thousands of times per hour. He was humming softly when Camille opened his office door without knocking. Walter looked up. His smile started automatic and professional, then stalled. He knew Camille Whitaker. She had visited this branch twice in nearly a decade, both times for routine audits, both times scheduled months in advance. This was not scheduled. This was not routine. "Camille, good morning. I wasn't expecting." "Sit down, Walter." He was already sitting, but something in her voice made him feel as though he needed to sit again. Deeper this time. Camille placed her briefcase on his desk. She didn't open it yet. She folded her hands. "Do you know who Darius Hale is?" Walter blinked. "The man from yesterday? Some guy who walked in trying to—" Darius Hale is the founder and CEO of Hale Capital Group. His firm manages over $2 billion in assets. He has held accounts at this branch for years. Personal and corporate deposits totaling over $40 million. She paused, letting each number land. He was one of the largest individual clients in this entire region. Was. The past tense hit Walter like a stone through glass. He has filed a $50 million lawsuit against this branch, against you personally, and against Atlantic Union Financial Group. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has opened an investigation. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department has opened a criminal case. And a Livestream broadcast by your own teller from your own lobby of you having this man handcuffed and forced to his knees has been viewed over 20 million times. Walter's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His face drained of color, not all at once, but in stages. Forehead first, then cheeks, then lips, like watching a photograph bleach in the sun. Camille opened her briefcase. She pulled out a tablet. Full 14 minutes. Walter watched himself walk out from the back office. He watched himself interrogate Darius. He watched himself call security. He watched Royce handcuff Darius. He watched Darius's knees hit the marble. He heard Jenna's voice, his own employee, narrate the whole thing. "Caught a live one today, guys." Then Camille swiped to the second video, Eugene Ramsey's footage. Different angle. Closer. This one captured what the live stream had missed. Walter's face as Darius knelt. The expression of satisfaction. The smirk when the child asked if Darius had stolen something. The red grooves on Darius's wrists when the handcuffs came off. Then she opened a folder. Simon Pryor's 4-page statement. Every paragraph a nail. Every sentence a lock clicking shut. Then the compliance records. Nearly a decade. 0 anti-discrimination reports filed. 0. The federal consent decree had required quarterly submissions. Walter hadn't filed one. Not once. Walter gripped the edge of his desk. Camille, I was following protocol. He had no documentation, no appointment. I was protecting the bank. You were protecting yourself, Camille said, her voice quiet but unyielding. From a man in sneakers who made you uncomfortable. And you handcuffed him on your lobby floor and let your teller turn it into entertainment. She stood. Your employment is terminated. Effective immediately. Grounds: assault, false imprisonment, racial discrimination, fraud, violation of the federal consent decree, and conduct that has exposed this company to catastrophic legal and reputational liability. You can't. I've been here nearly a decade. And in nearly a decade, you filed 0 compliance reports. You terminated 11 employees of color. You built a profiling system. You handcuffed a $40 million client on your floor. And you let your teller live stream it to 20 million people. She closed the briefcase. Nearly a decade, Walter. This is what you built. She turned to the door, then paused. Royce is terminated. Jenna Carver is terminated. Your badges will be collected before you leave the building. Security will escort all 3 of you out. Do not access any bank systems. Do not contact any clients or staff. The door closed behind her. The office was silent. Walter sat in his leather chair, the same chair he had occupied for nearly a decade, making decisions about who belonged and who did not. The Montblanc pen was still clipped to his pocket. The gold cufflinks still caught the light. But the nameplate on the desk no longer meant anything. And the man who had thought he owned the lobby had just been told he didn't even own the chair. Walter walked out of his office carrying a cardboard box. Inside were framed photos, a coffee mug that said, "Number 1 branch manager," his Montblanc pen, a desk calendar still showing the last day he had mattered in this building. A corporate security officer walked beside him, not Royce. Royce was being processed in the break room, handing over his badge and his handcuffs. The same handcuffs that had left red marks on a man worth $2 billion. Walter moved through the lobby, past the teller windows where he had stood 1,000 mornings giving instructions, past the leather chairs where his favorite clients used to sit, past the brass letters on the wall. Heritage First National, established 1962. He had walked past those letters every day for nearly a decade and felt as though they belonged to him. They didn't. They never had. The remaining staff watched in silence. 2 tellers stood frozen behind their windows. A loan officer at his desk stared at his keyboard. No one said goodbye. No one said anything. Jenna Carver was next. She walked out from behind the counter with her bag over one shoulder, mascara running down both cheeks. Her phone was in her hand, the same phone that had broadcast minutes of a man being humiliated on a marble floor to thousands of live viewers and millions of replays. The HR investigator had asked her one question. You said the phone wasn't used for company business. Then why did you live stream a customer interaction on your personal social media? Jenna had no answer. She had no answer for any of it. She walked to the front door, pushed through, and stood on the sidewalk, blinking in the morning light. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Notifications, tags, Messages, reposts, the live stream she couldn't delete, the words she couldn't take back. Caught a live one. Her voice, her face, her grin, permanently embedded in the internet like a fossil in stone. Royce left through this back exit. He said nothing to anyone. He carried no box. He had nothing worth taking. Walter stood in the parking lot. The cardboard box sat on the hood of his car. He looked at the building. Brick and glass, brass letters, the same front door he had walked through thousands of mornings. He had believed he was the backbone of this place, the standard bearer, the gatekeeper. He was the problem. He just hadn't known it. Or perhaps he always had. And that was worse. He sat in his car with the engine off for a long time. The morning sun heated the windshield. He stared at the building, then at the steering wheel, then at nothing. Inside the bank, Darius Hale walked through the front door. Same jeans, same sneakers, same navy jacket with the missing button. He had come back while Camille was still on site. Not for an apology, not for satisfaction. He found Camille in the lobby. She extended her hand. He shook it. "I'm not here for an apology," he said. "I'm here to make sure this never happens to the next person who walks through that door in sneakers." "What do you need?" "Everything. New management, new training, new culture. And I want to see it happen. Not in a press release. In this lobby." Camille nodded. "You'll have it." Darius looked around the room. The staff were watching, cautious, uncertain, ashamed. He didn't address them. He didn't need to. His presence said what words could not. "I was on your floor days ago. Now I'm standing in your lobby, deciding your future." In the days that followed, the aftermath spread far beyond the building. Long-time clients of color began contacting the branch and the corporate office, stories they had never filed, complaints they had never made. A black business owner who had been told the private banking lounge was reserved, only to watch a white man sit down minutes later. A Hispanic woman who had been asked for 3 forms of identification to deposit a check. An elderly black man who had been redirected to the ATM. On every single visit for years. Each story had been swallowed. Each indignity absorbed because they didn't think anyone would care. Eugene Ramsey was interviewed by a local reporter that evening. He sat in his living room in the same brown cardigan, his phone on the coffee table. "I've been recording every visit to that bank for years," he said. "Every single one, just in case. My wife used to say I was paranoid." He paused, smiled. A small, tired, knowing smile. That day, just in case, finally showed up. Finally, Simon Pryor called Camille the next day. She assured him his position was safe and his courage would be recognized. He exhaled, the first full breath he had taken since that morning. Darius received hundreds of messages from strangers that week. Different names, different cities, the same story. "That happened to me. I was treated the same way. Thank you for not letting it go." The criminal case moved quickly. When the evidence is on Livestream, there isn't much room to argue. Detective Lena Cruz built the file in days. She had been a detective with Charlotte Mecklenburg PD for over a decade. She had seen racial profiling cases before, usually murkier, usually one person's word against another's, usually buried under layers of he said, she said, until the whole thing quietly disappeared. This one was different. This one had 2 cameras, millions of witnesses, and a teller who had narrated her own actions like a podcast host. Charges against Walter Pennington: assault for physically forcing Darius to his knees, false imprisonment for detaining a lawful customer without cause, and filing false statements. His internal incident report, written that same afternoon, claimed Darius had been belligerent, verbally aggressive, and physically threatening. The live stream showed a man who never raised his voice. Eugene's footage showed a man who never moved his hands. Walter's own report was the lie that sealed his case. Royce was charged with assault for the unlawful handcuffing and use of excessive force on a cooperating individual. Jenna Carver faced civil charges for defamation. Her livestream commentary, "Caught a live one. Sure, buddy," which implied criminal conduct by a lawful customer, and for violation of customer privacy regulations for broadcasting a banking interaction without consent. The CFPB investigation expanded beyond the South Park branch. Federal investigators audited all 22 Heritage First National locations. 3 other branches showed similar patterns: disproportionate service refusals for customers of color, profiling complaints marked "resolved" with no follow-up, and zero compliance with the consent decree that was supposed to prevent exactly this. Darius's legal team filed the $50 million civil lawsuit that same week. Named defendants: Heritage First National Bank, Walter Pennington personally, Royce, Jenna Carver, and Atlantic Union Financial Group. Allegations: racial discrimination, assault, false imprisonment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and violation of the federal consent decree. The trial began weeks later at the Charlotte County Courthouse. Judge Harlan Pierce presided, a man in his early 60s, a former federal prosecutor known for 2 things: his patience with evidence and his complete lack of patience with excuses. The gallery was packed. Front row, journalists from national outlets, local papers, and a documentary crew. Behind them, civil rights advocates, banking industry observers, and law students taking notes. Eugene Ramsey sat in the 3rd row, brown cardigan, reading glasses, hands folded in his lap. The prosecution opened with Jenna's live stream. The courtroom screen lit up. The bank lobby appeared. Marble, chandeliers, brass fixtures. Then Walter walked out. Then the interrogation. Then the call to security. Then Royce. Then the handcuffs. The courtroom heard the metal click shut. They heard Darius's knees hit marble. They heard the child ask, "Did that man steal something?" They heard Walter answer, "That's right, buddy." Then they heard Jenna, her voice, her laugh. "Got a live one today, guys. Walked in here talking about $30 million. Sure, buddy." A juror in the front row pressed her hand over her mouth. Another closed his eyes and didn't open them until the video ended. Judge Pierce watched without expression, but his pen stopped moving halfway through. He set it down and didn't pick it up again until the screen went dark. Then the prosecution played Eugene's footage, 14 minutes, uncut. The second angle. This video showed what the live stream couldn't. Walter's face. The smirk when Darius was forced down. The way he straightened his cufflinks while a man knelt on his floor. The satisfaction in his eyes. Not anger. Not concern. Pleasure. It also showed the aftermath. The moment the handcuffs came off. The camera caught Darius's wrists, 2 rings of swollen red skin, deep grooves pressed into flesh. The courtroom was silent. A journalist stopped typing. Simon Pryor took the stand on the second day. He wore a tie and a suit that didn't quite fit. He had bought it for the occasion. His hands shook in the witness box. He described the culture, the unwritten rules, the redirecting. Walter's jokes about black clients. "There goes the neighborhood," when a black family walked in. "Check his pockets," whispered to Royce when a young black man approached the counter. He described the private banking services that were only offered to white customers: the leather chairs, the birthday calls, the Christmas scotch. The prosecutor asked why he hadn't intervened that morning. Simon's voice cracked. Because I was afraid. Because I watched it happen, and I told myself it wasn't my problem. Because saying something meant losing my job, and staying quiet meant keeping it. He paused, swallowed. I chose wrong, and I have to live with the fact that a man was on his knees 10 feet away from me, and I closed the door. 5 former customers of color testified over 2 days. Each story was different in the details and identical in the feeling. The profiling, the redirection, the ID checks that white customers never faced, the smiles that disappeared, the warmth that evaporated. Years of small humiliations, never reported, never filed, never spoken aloud until now. Walter's defense attorney argued standard security protocols. He called the handcuffing a reasonable precaution for a high-value transaction. He pointed out that Darius had no documentation and no appointment. Judge Pierce's sentencing remarks dismantled every excuse in minutes. Mr. Pennington did not follow protocol. He followed prejudice. He looked at a man, a longtime client of his own institution, holding $40 million in deposits, and saw not a customer, but a threat. Not because of behavior, because of skin color. He paused. He threw that man's dignity onto a marble floor along with his identification. He ordered him handcuffed. He forced him to his knees. He told a child that this man was a criminal. And his own employee broadcast the entire act to millions of people as entertainment. Another pause. The cruelty was the point, and the camera caught every second of it. Sentencing. Walter Pennington, 16 months in state prison, 3 years of supervised probation, mandatory anti-discrimination training, full restitution, and a permanent restraining order. Royce, 8 months, barred from the security industry. Jenna Carver, found liable in civil court for defamation and privacy violations, ordered to pay damages. Her name, her face, and her voice caught a live one, permanently linked to the case on every search engine, every database, every background check for the rest of her professional life. Atlantic Union Financial Group settled Darius's lawsuit for an undisclosed amount. They were required to overhaul anti-discrimination policies across all 22 branches, submit to 5 years of federal monitoring, and establish a $10 million fund for banking access in underserved Charlotte neighborhoods. Darius gave one interview, 10 minutes on a national news program. He wore a suit this time, not because he needed to, but because the occasion called for it. I didn't file this lawsuit because I was embarrassed, he said. I filed it because I know how this story ends when the person in those sneakers doesn't have $40 million in the bank. It ends with silence. And I'm done with silence. The quote was shared over 1 million times. Eugene Ramsey was interviewed by 3 outlets. He said the same thing to each one. I've been recording for years. I always knew someday it would matter. I just didn't think it would matter to 20 million people. In the months that followed, Heritage First National's South Park branch looked the same from the outside. Brick and glass, brass letters above the door. The parking lot still filled up on busy mornings. The air conditioning still hit you cold when you walked through the front door. But inside, everything had changed. Gloria Sims sat behind the branch manager's desk, a black woman in her mid-40s, promoted from within the company. She had spent years at another Heritage First branch, quietly building the kind of culture Walter had spent nearly a decade destroying. Her policy was simple. Every chair, every person. It meant the leather chairs were for everyone. The private office was for everyone. The birthday calls, the premium service, the eye contact, the handshake, for everyone. No scanning, no profiling, no unwritten rules, no invisible dress code. The first thing Gloria did was take down the framed community photos, all white faces, golf tournaments, ribbon cuttings. She replaced them with new ones. A financial literacy workshop at a community center in West Charlotte. A ribbon cutting at a mobile banking unit in Greer Heights. A photo of the branch staff. Every face, every shade, every name. The second thing she did was remove the leather chair from Walter's old office and place it in the main lobby, right next to the front door. So it was the first thing you saw when you walked in. A chair for anyone, not just the people who looked like they deserved it. Eugene Ramsey still banked there every other week, same as always. He still sat in the waiting area, but now someone brought him coffee without him asking. He didn't carry his phone on his knee anymore. He didn't need to record. For the first time in years, he could just sit and read his newspaper. His wife told him she was proud. He told her he was just glad his hands could finally stop shaking when he walked through the door. Simon Pryor was promoted to senior loan officer at a different Heritage First branch across town. He also led the company's new internal accountability training program, built from his own 4-page statement about the culture he had witnessed and the silence he had chosen before finally speaking up. Every new employee at every Heritage First branch would hear his story in their first week, not as a warning, as a mirror. The $10 million community fund had already opened 3 mobile banking units in underserved Charlotte neighborhoods. Free financial literacy workshops every week, no-fee checking accounts, no minimum balance, no dress code. Banking for the people who had never been offered the leather chair until now. One morning, months after the incident, Darius Hale walked into Heritage First National's South Park branch, jeans, white sneakers, plain navy jacket. Same outfit, every detail the same, except one, a new button sewn where the old one had popped off on a marble floor. Gloria saw him from across the lobby. She smiled. Wide, warm, real. The kind of smile that doesn't check what you're wearing first. "Good morning, Mr. Hale. What can we do for you today?" Darius smiled back. "Just a wire transfer, if that's all right." "Absolutely, right this way." She walked him to the private office, offered coffee, the leather chair, the window with a view of the parking lot, the same parking lot where Walter Pennington had once sat in his car with a cardboard box, staring at a building that no longer wanted him. Darius sat down. The coffee was good. The chair was comfortable. Morning sunlight came through the glass and warmed the side of his face. He didn't need anyone to know who he was. He just needed to know that the next person who walked through that door, in sneakers or a suit, with $40 or $40 million, would be treated exactly the same. So here's my question. If you were standing in that bank lobby that morning, not as the CEO, not as someone with lawyers and a $2 billion firm behind you, just as yourself, standing in line, watching a man get handcuffed and shoved to his knees for the crime of wearing sneakers, would you have pulled out your phone like Eugene? Or would you have looked down at your shoes? Be honest. Drop it in the comments. And if this story made you feel something, if it made your jaw tighten, your chest heavy, or your fist close, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Like it. Subscribe, because these stories aren't stopping. Not until things change. Heritage First National is fictional. Darius Hale is fictional. But that marble floor is real. People get pushed down onto it every single day. In banks, in stores, in offices, in restaurants, for the crime of not looking like what someone expected. Darius had the money. He had the lawyers. He had the receipts. But he shouldn't have needed any of that just to deposit a check in peace. The question isn't what's in your bank account. The question is what's in the room when you walk through the door. Is it respect? Or is it a test you never signed up for? I'll see you in the next one. Stay loud, stay sharp, and never let anyone decide what you're worth based on what you're wearing.